Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Good evening. Welcome to the Bo and Joe Show. And for those who are watching, obviously, our superstar is missing. She is a little under the weather. She had a busy holiday weekend. And so we are missing our fearless leader. But we can handle it, right? And it's going to be a very busy night. We have a lot of topics to cover. So how you doing, Ferris?
Doing great. Want to wish Joe a speedy recovery. You know, hope she hope whatever it is minor and she gets over it quickly and we can welcome that leader back next Wednesday.
Absolutely.
So thinking about you, Joe.
Absolutely. Let's hope she's watching, right? Let's hope she's watching while she's in bed relaxing. So we're thinking about you, Joe. Get better.
Stay under the covers.
There you go. There you go. So let's jump into it, bro. We got a long night. So here's what we're going to do. The first half hour, we're going to jump into events of this week, topics of the week. And then the last half hour, we'll do a year in review. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. Lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely. So let's jump to it. Obviously, the first topic is I'm wearing the hat. The Oakland Raiders. We got to talk about the passing of John Madden, the coach. And it is sad. I've watched pretty much all the programs that are. Matter of fact, you sent me a text. Did you watch the Christmas Day program?
Absolutely, and you know what? I'm a recorder of things. I record things because there's so many things that I like, so many sports. There's so many things I watch that I record a lot of things, and I think it was actually pretty fitting that I did not watch it on Christmas Day. I watched it last night after we heard of the passing of John Madden. Yeah. And it was a great documentary. Did you get to see it?
I did. I recorded it too. I recorded it as well, and I watched it. And I watched it like 2:00 in the morning, and it was a great program. So, and I'm probably going to rewatch it because that's how good it was. Right?
Yeah, that's something you don't immediately delete that. That's something that you keep it. It'll be on my DVR for quite a while.
Yep. Agreed. I mean, I found out some things that I didn't know, like he was drafted by the Eagles and didn't get a chance to play because he blew his knee out. And that makes sense because if you think about that time frame, if you got a major knee injury, the medical technology wasn't as good as it is today, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, where you could eventually come back. But back then, what? We're talking early 60s?
Yeah.
Right? It depends on the type of knee. It was just going to be too tough for him to come back. So I didn't realize he was drafted by the Eagles. That was something I learned. And there's Justin. Thanks, Justin. We agree. Rest in peace, John Madden.
So, and John was a trip that I think, and obviously we're older, Bo, so we did see John Madden coach.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think one of the most telling things about the show was the context of how many people loved him, but how many people really did not know him as a coach like we did. So we got to see him in all of his facets of life and the things that he did. But then you start talking about the Madden game and the kids playing Madden. And I remember I played Madden with my boys when it came out way back when. And I'm not a big video game guy, but 32 years old, youngest head coach ever hired back in the 1960s. Just think about that. 32 years old in the 1960s. And you're talking about coaches like Tom Landry, Hank Stram, Lombardi, guys that are in their 60s, 70s, and here's John Madden being hired by Al Davis at 32 years old. And one of the most telling stats is he still holds the best winning percentage for any coach who's coached over 100 games in the NFL. He's got the highest winning percentage. So, it started out as legacy, and then what he did on television, and it was pretty, you forget some things. You forget that he started the telestrator and started drawing things on the TV and showing what the offense and defense was doing, and like they mentioned, talking about the offensive and defensive linemen and talking about them and their impact and what they really do, and just educating everybody on the game of football as he did his thing. So yeah, he was just a special guy.
And how it happened was Berkeley asked him to come teach football at the university, and they showed. Remember that they showed a wide screen of the students sitting in the room, the lecture hall, and it was more women in there than there were guys, and he appreciated that. So he saw it as an opportunity to teach, which he earned a degree in. As a teacher, he was a certified teacher, right? So he wasn't playing a teacher. He actually went through the process of becoming a teacher. And so the illustrator is basically a jump from writing on the whiteboard or the chalkboard, putting the X's and O's on the chalkboard, right?
Yep.
You play football, right?
Absolutely.
So you have your coach, you're in your meeting room, and you got your coach drawing up the play on the chalkboard or on the whiteboard, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yep.
And so it basically shifted from him being a teacher and a coach to teaching folks who are watching it on TV. It just makes sense, right? And so just the little things that happened because he brought his past experiences as a coach and a teacher to the booth. And it was greatest thing that ever happened, because every sports program now uses some type of telestrator, right? You can't find a program that talks about sports, be it basketball, football, whatever, hockey, that they use a telestrator. And that was John Madden. He started it. He created it, right? And it's what a great documentary. Just incredible. I'm telling you.
There were just a lot of little things in there that you're like, wow. Like they never had, these are major broadcasts. They never had production meetings until John Madden showed up.
Yep. He said, no.
Think about that.
Right.
You don't have a production meeting about live broadcast TV.
Right.
Until Madden showed up.
Right.
They never went and interviewed coaches or players. They didn't go to practices. They didn't do any of that stuff.
They just showed up.
Madden showed
they
up.
just showed up and televised
Called the game.
And John was like, no, that doesn't make sense. No, you got to prepare, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As a coach, we prepare. Even the day of the game, we prepare, right? We still have our separate meetings, right? We have the D-backs and the linemen, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, and then everybody breaks into their offensive versus defensive meetings. So you start off with your individual meetings, and then you come together as your offense and defense, and then you do your special teams. What do we call them? Walkthroughs. You do your walkthroughs in the hotel, and then you get to the stadium If you need to work on some things, you'll do it out on the field prior to the game. So he brought that to the broadcast booth and television. All of that is because of, and listen, I was born in 1965. So 1977, right? I am, still a little crumb snatcher, right? A little chocolate morsel, watching for years from 1970. I'm 5 years old. I'm probably start watching football, right?
Same experience, Bo.
Right.
Same experience.
I'm watching the Raiders versus, Don Shula and the Miami Dolphins, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs, those in Baltimore. It was the Baltimore Colts.
It was Baltimore.
Right? Baltimore
people
Colts.
ask me all the time, how did you become a Cowboys fan? Well, I became a Cowboys fan because the first game I remember watching is the Cowboys losing to the Colts in the Super Bowl. That's and I loved the star, I loved the silver, I loved the blue, and I became a Cowboys fan. So, you're probably a half a year older than I am, and I'm sure we've had the same experience growing up watching football. I mean, it's all we did, going out and playing it.
Well, you read my book. I wrote about it in my book. What we did was we went to church, right? And then we went to our grandmother's house, and whatever channel the TV was on, that's what it stayed on, and it was CBS, right? And CBS was, that was the network that my grandmother loved. And so those games, and in Jacksonville, there was no Jaguars back then. So I fell in love with the Cowboys for all those reasons you talked about. I also fell in love with the Raiders because they were also on, right? But I also fell in love with the Cowboys because of the cheerleaders. Right? So I will admit that, right? But my first love was the Cowboys growing up. Second love was the Oakland Raiders. And people would say to me, well, why not the Miami Dolphins? The Miami Dolphins was 8 hours south, right? And Tampa wasn't even around at that point either. So there was no Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay came probably in the mid 70s. So it was Cowboys and the Raiders, those two teams, because the chances are they never played each other during this season. They would probably meet in the Super Bowl. So as a kid, you're going to, at least in my mind, I was rooting for teams that I could root for and they not play each other, which means I would be disappointed if one of them lost, right? So it was definitely in that conference, which was, remember, it started out the AFL, then it became the NFL. They joined and had the merger. So it was definitely the Raiders, Cowboys, then the Raiders.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. R.I.P. John Madden. Rest in peace, my man.
Absolutely.
Gave us some good years.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll probably end this part of this section on the commercials they showed. The commercials they showed. Remember all the light beer commercials, him busting through the paper and everything else, and throwing his hands around and all that stuff. I sat there and I was just smiling and laughing, remembering those commercials. So
great commercials.
No doubt.
And I'll end with this. You said you played Madden with your boys. I've never played Madden. Ever. I've only played video games when I was at Villanova. Well, let me backtrack. My mom did get us the very early Atari, if that was the name.
Yeah,
that
Atari.
One particular game, the tennis game where you had to
Pong.
Pong, right. We played that. So that would have been late 60s, early 70s. But other than that, I didn't even play Pac-Man until I got to Villanova, because if you remember, the basketball team had video games, those big video games in their locker room. Yep. Football didn't have it, right? Baseball didn't have it. Basketball was the basketball players had at least, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 of the top video games in their locker room. And that was the first time I played Pac-Man, because Ed Pinckney took me in the men's locker room. I was like, get out of here. Very first time. Yep.
Yep. So I know Joe's not here tonight, so I kind of have my other thing up here, and I'm seeing the comments, and one of my good friends, Andy Nelson, made a comment here. Madden always dumbed down the game for the common man. He broke down all that was going on. Only wish I could have watched him coach the GOAT. There he is. There it is.
Absolutely, Andy. Absolutely. Because that's what he did. Absolutely. No doubt about it. That's exactly what he did. And I'm pretty sure he had that effect on not just man, but women as well. Because we absolutely have more women watching football today than we did in the 60s and early 70s. So it was John Madden did that too.
Yep. Absolutely.
In partnership with the NFL, because they understood it. They needed to grow the sport. So absolutely. Rest in peace. Great man. Got my hat on.
Sir.
I'm gonna wear my hat probably the next couple of days. So
all right.
What's the next
one? So who you got Friday? We have college football semifinals. We have the Alabama Cincinnati at 3:30 in the Cotton Bowl, and then we have obviously our Georgia Bulldogs in Michigan at 7:30 in the Orange Bowl. So big day on Friday.
Yep.
I think probably the what most people will think the most competitive game will be is the Georgia-Michigan game.
Yes.
Similar big running game for Michigan, big offensive line for Michigan. Their tailback, I think, ran for over 20 touchdowns this year. Then you have the Georgia defense, who didn't show up as much in their SEC championship game against Alabama, but still was the number one defense in the country. So very, very interesting matchup on Friday night. So what are you thinking?
Well, I'm turning my light up a little bit. My family's from Alabama, Mobile and Atmo. It's all about Bama. The only time I've ever liked a team out of the state of Ohio is when LeBron was playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I've never rooted for a team in this from the state of Ohio.
Don't tell me you're a LeBron guy, Bo.
No. I'm just saying that's the only time I've ever rooted. And I'm not. I mean, I like LeBron. I'm not against him, but I'm not one of those guys that he's my sole one and only NBA. No. But I appreciate him for what he's able to do and what he has done coming out of high school. But so Alabama over Cincinnati, and Cincinnati may prove to be a formidable opponent if they've got the cojones, right? If they show up and play hard. But I anticipate Alabama. I mean, until you get punched in the mouth, you don't know what you're in for. So let's see how they hold up. But I no doubt Bama should win, because if they don't, that's going to be a huge upset.
Yeah, 13.5 point. They're favored by 13.5 points. I think back to other games where there was you have to think back to Oklahoma Boise State. Remember 2007 Oklahoma Boise State, and Boise State came out and pulled out all the stops and upset Oklahoma.
Yep.
It would be that type of thing if Cincinnati wins.
Punched them right in the mouth. Absolutely.
Yep.
No question. Yep. That, and if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the game where the running back proposed to his girlfriend?
Yeah. Johnson.
Cheerleader. Yep.
Johnson.
Great game. They pulled out all
Kelvin says Cincinnati upset.
Oh my goodness! Come on, Cal.
You're going out there. You're putting yourself on the limb, Kelvin.
Yeah, he's putting himself out there. Yeah. Again, but I also know, as a former player, anything can happen. But I just don't see this happening. No.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I see Alabama winning. Obviously, Michigan had a great year, but I have to expect that Georgia learned a lesson from the whooping they took in the SEC championship game, and they're going to come ready to play on Friday, looking to try to get back to Alabama for that championship game on the 10th. So I've got Georgia. Who you got?
Oh, we got to part ways. I'm Michigan. I got family.
You going with Michigan?
I got family in Detroit and then in the surrounding Detroit area. Oh no, no. And I've always been a Harbaugh fan, right? I knew he would pull it together.
I like him too.
I knew he would pull it together. But yeah, I'm on Michigan.
I just can't like him against the Dogs.
Nope. Sorry, dogs.
I can't do that.
The Wolverines are going to eat them dogs up, and it's going to be a fight, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. I really think it's going to be a competitive game.
Them boys are going to be fighting. So, yeah, I look forward to it. That's an all-day Friday football day. I am looking forward to it, and yeah, so that's going to be exciting. And then we got Friday night. You know, pop some champagne.
That's it.
Bring in the new year. To start off 2022.
I'm starting early.
Good for you. I got a busy day tomorrow, so I'm drinking water. So let's talk about and so let's roll into the NFL and the COVID situation, because not only is it affecting college teams, it's affecting all sports. This COVID thing is crazy. I mean, it started out where sports was showed the way, was the perfect example with the bubbles, right? No fans, you know, guys, the teams and organizations doing the right thing to protect themselves and so forth. But now I don't know what's going on, because this did not happen when you think about the COVID situation and sports, just sports. It did. I mean, when we didn't have a vaccine, everybody was on their P's and Q's, right? They were in the bubble. The NBA, the WNBA, I think did as well. Football, you know, they did what they had to do. I just don't know why it's so hard to sacrifice and insulate yourself so you can continue to play, because the teams that are winning are having less COVID issues. I mean, it's just that simple. If your players are on the field, they can play. If you're not on the field, you're hurting your chances. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we talked about it really quickly before the show, and the comment that I made is it only takes one.
Yeah.
Right? So it only takes one person, number one. Then you have to think about it this way. And where sports is different than any other job, so to speak. These guys are with each other. They're close knit. They are in locker rooms together. They're showering together. They are doing things in a manner that the normal person does not live. And if you think about it that way, and it only takes one, then it's very easy, once that one person affected or infected, to spread it. Yeah. You know, they're sharing towels, they're sharing stalls, you know, they're sharing things personally that the normal person does not. So I don't know that it's necessarily them or any of them not being responsible and not being careful. You know, I just don't think it takes much. And I think my personal opinion is that some people are more susceptible than others.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're
all built differently. You know, I don't get sick that easily. Whereas my wife, I mean, you just breathe on her and she gets sick. So I think different people are susceptible. You
That's
know,
why
and
you
I
have,
think
that's why
all
you have,
those things go in it.
that's why you have to be careful. Everybody has to be careful, right? Everybody has to be careful. Who is it? Andy, NBA is hurting because of COVID. The good games not as good with replacement players. Look at the Hawks. I haven't started paying attention, Andy, yet to the NBA. Only
Yeah, I know
because,
Trey Young was out, and he
yeah,
just came back. He didn't even play on Christmas Day against the Knicks. He just came back this week.
right.
You know, so same scenario. And the thing, and it's funny. You think about percentages. You know, you have 12 players on an NBA team. I think it's 12, 13 max.
No, it's up. It's I think it's 17 up to 17 now.
Okay, well, so even if it is just the percentages, though, you
Right,
lose two or three, and they're starters, you're in a hole.
right.
You
Because
know what I mean?
generally you're going to have an 8, 9 man rotation.
Yeah,
Right. The other guys are generally not going to get in the game unless you're blowing somebody out. Right. So generally it's a starting 5, 4 guys subbing. That's 9. It may be 10, depending on the type of team and the type of players they have. But that's pretty much it. Right. So
yeah.
you're
But
right.
the scale of the NFL outbreaks on some of these teams was crazy, though. What did the
Yeah.
Browns have? 20, 22? I
Yeah.
mean, and look at Washington. You know,
Yeah.
we said we weren't going to talk about Washington, but if you think about the game this past weekend and
Oh,
the number of players that they had on the COVID list,
right.
they made the comment about how it really impacted their ability to prepare for the game.
Yeah.
So, you know, you may look at it and be like, they just didn't show up. Or no, they were impacted by this, and it really affected their ability, you know, to prepare for the game.
Because they didn't have bodies to practice. They were literally pulling guys off practice squads from other teams.
Yeah.
And then when they found out the number 2 guy had COVID, then you basically had the same scenario they had the previous week where they signed a guy from
Taylor Heineke was out, and so
right.
they signed I forget
guy,
his name, but they got him 6 days prior from the Patriots
Yep.
Patriots practice squad,
Yep.
and he started that week.
Right. So they had the same thing happen with a defensive back, a middle linebacker, a defensive end. And you can't, I mean, all you're doing is playing reaction football.
Yeah.
Read and react, right? Where you can't play fast. And if you can't play fast because you're thinking about what you have to do, right? Because it's not just you line up on DN and you crash, or you know, you got to think about covering the outside if they're going to run an option or run outside. You got to prepare if they're going to run. What type of do they run screens, right? What kind of formations? I mean, everything's different.
Just look at how bad their offensive line was.
Oh.
I mean, Heineke was getting killed from play number 1, and you and I were texting back and forth, and the comment I made to you was simply, I hope he makes it through the game and doesn't get hurt. That's how badly he was being ripped around that field.
Right. And what my reply back to you was, this could get ugly pretty fast, and it did.
Yeah.
It got ugly fast. And then we were talking about, hey man, if it gets really bad, let's hope they can get into the locker room and the coach can calm this thing down, because of the fist fight that happened on the sideline. Like, it got ugly really fast.
Yeah.
And it look at the score. The score reflects it. I mean,
it sure did.
Bad. I felt bad. I was like, this is crazy.
Yep.
Right.
So Andy said the Hawks had 8 replacement players dressed out of 12 tonight. Tonight, 8 replacement players out of 12.
You can't win that way.
You have no
Can't win that
shot.
way. You got no chemistry. You can't play fast.
See, and
It's
this
not
is see, but
instinctual. Yeah.
yeah, and I guess this goes to okay, do you cancel the game and do you play it another time? And if you do that, are you putting the other team at a disadvantage because are you giving the Hawks a mulligan, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're really not ready to play, but the other team is. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah.
You play the game,
You play the
right?
game. And the reason you play the game, and here's a shout out to a good friend who I met when I was at Villanova, Money, Calvin Hunt. We called him Money. And his significant other, Christine, I think, is watching tonight. Hopefully, she'll chime in and send a question in. But he said to me through a text, it's all about the money, right? It's all about the money. You can't go 2 years, right? 2 years without fans in the stands and just play the game. Sure, having the players play the game doesn't affect your TV revenue, but if you don't have fans in the stands, that still hurts because of the ticket prices, right? That's revenue the teams are losing. So they're gambling with, okay, we trust people who are coming to the game, have been vaccinated, or taking care of themselves and not putting other people in jeopardy. So it's a tough situation to be in. But teams are getting hurt, players are missing time, and the product is not looking great on TV. The Washington Dallas game is the perfect example of the product. Because come on,
Yeah.
when was the last time Dallas blew somebody out by that many points?
Well, all you have to do is look 3 weeks earlier. They played
Yeah.
3 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
The Cowboys jumped out on them, but it ended up being what, a 4-point game?
27-20. Right. 27,
Yeah.
27
7-point game.
Yeah.
So
Perfect
and
example.
that's the NFL. The NFL works that way. Somebody may get out on top early, but generally it tends to even out and it becomes a more competitive game. So, that speaks a lot to just the situation in general.
That's correct. I agree. No doubt.
Absolutely.
And shout out to Justin, because Justin sent me one of the topics we covered tonight. So shout out to Justin, our good man, our good fan. Good man. Good deal. So let's do a quick review of what games we're going to watch so we can do the year in review.
All right. So playoff picture real quick. AFC is still just up in the air. The Chiefs are still the only team that has clinched a playoff spot in the AFC.
Yep.
And then we've got
there's 8 games this weekend that are important games, at least 8 or 10, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go through them.
Yeah. So 1 o'clock, Eagles now in the seventh wild card spot are at the Washington football team.
And they have to win. And people might think that that's not a good game. No, Eagles have to win that game if they want to remain in that 7th seed, that 7th spot.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they want to remain there, they've got to win out.
Yep.
And they've got the Cowboys in week 18. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yep.
Second game, Rams at the Ravens. And the Ravens are kind of slumping now.
They need the game.
Yep.
That's an important game for both teams.
Rams are now on top of the NFC West.
And if they slip, they can slip from leading it to like the third spot in that division. So everybody's got to keep winning. There's no gimme games.
Yeah, because they're at the Ravens and quite honestly, I don't think the Rams do not go east very, very well. You know what I mean? So I think it's just
right.
That old West Coast to East Coast thing. We've talked about it a couple times this year already.
Absolutely.
And then, on the other side of that, to finish that equation, you have the Cowboys and the Cardinals playing this weekend. So Cardinals, Rams, those two games are going to be big for that NFC West.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins, Titans. Dolphins are
Important
now in the seventh spot,
Mm-hmm.
seventh wild card spot.
Yep.
So they're another team like the Eagles that have to keep winning.
Yep. Absolutely.
And going to Tennessee is going to be a tough deal for him. No doubt.
It's very. That's going to be an incredible game because Tennessee is a smash mouth team. So that's going to be very interesting. And Miami played well the other night. So they showed me something. They showed me something.
They did. I mean, their defenses played very well. Still think their offense has a lot of work to do. So I fully expect the Titans to win that game. And the Titans, we talked about the Titans game last week, the Niners and the Titans, that Thursday game. And, that was a big game because the Titans actually came back to win that game. They were down early, but they're just tough at home. So I see the Titans winning that game.
Okay.
Raiders, Colts. Raiders at the Colts.
Another great game.
Raiders are trying to stay in.
And Colts can't afford to drop out. Absolutely.
No. And the Colts, they're winning in spite of Carson Wentz right now.
And he's helping us because the Eagles now get those draft picks because he's played, I think it was 90% of the plays at quarterback. So we got the best out of that deal. But yeah, they need to run the ball.
So what do you think about the MVP situation where everybody's talking about Rodgers and Brady, but everybody's trying to step up for Taylor, the tailback for the Colts?
Yeah, I don't mind him being in the conversation, but come on. Aaron Rodgers. He's a bad man. That dude can sling that rock. The team has a better win-loss record. He's as long as he doesn't fall apart these next two games, he's going to be back-to-back MVP winner. So, regardless of his behavior regarding COVID and telling a little white lie or fudging the truth, we can separate the two because they're both true. He's the best quarterback in the NFL, period. No one slings that rock better than him. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. So,
who you got in that game? You know what? The Raiders have been hot. I'm going to take the Raiders in this game.
Where's it at?
It's in Indianapolis. I'm going to take the Raiders in this game.
I can see that because their quarterback is a leader of men. He stepped up. He continues to step up, and he's a better quarterback than his older brother. So,
all right, next big game. Patrick Mahomes going to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Woo!
And Bengals now in first place in the AFC. Is it Central? They call it these days.
That's gonna be a shootout.
Barn burner.
Oh, the kid threw for 525 yards last week. Burrow,
that was a crazy number.
He's coming into his own. That's gonna be a sling out. I mean, that's going to be a slugfest. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Absolutely. I'm going to go with Kansas City because, again, I can't root for any team in Ohio, the state of Ohio. But I like he's got you talking about weapons? That kid's got weapons, without a doubt. From running back to the receiving core to the tight ends. I see Cincinnati being a problem for teams in 2 years. They're going to be on the verge of winning a Super Bowl if everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, I agree.
He's got a crew. He's got a
Well,
crew.
get this, Justin's Joe Burrow for MVP coming out of Justin.
Oh, stop it, Justin.
All right, so not as big a game for the Falcons, but for the Bills. Falcons at the Bills. The Bills took care of business this weekend, like we talked about. They came out and played physical football.
Yeah,
for me, it was pretty cool to see crickets on Facebook and not see any Patriot stuff going across my timeline on Sunday afternoon. I was going to post something, but I said I'm not going to be that guy. I figured I'd say something tonight.
I'm sure Justin's not loving that statement right there, but that's okay, Justin. It's all right.
It's okay. I mean,
it's okay.
You know what? They have a rookie quarterback, and we talked about this last week. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're a good football team. They're on their way. Mm-hmm. But when you have a rookie quarterback like that,
and we're getting close to the end of the year, the pressure starts to mount up, and let's just face it, that quarterback for Buffalo, he's got a bazooka on him, and he's got a pair of cojones on him. I mean, he runs the ball like he's not afraid of anybody. He's their best running threat because of his ability, and he's a tough kid. I like him. I do like him, and I agree. I don't see Atlanta going up there making any noise. So let's move on. That's a done deal.
Well, the next game that is a big one and became bigger because the Chargers laid the biggest egg this past weekend in losing to the Texans. We got the Broncos at San Diego. Could you believe that loss?
Not San Diego.
I mean Los Angeles. I'm sorry. They played like they were in San Diego last week.
That's true. That's true. Listen, that's a good game. I like the Chargers.
Yeah, I like the Chargers too because I still don't think what's his name's going to be back for the Broncos.
Bridgewater.
Quarterback. Bridgewater. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be back.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the Broncos without him can put up enough offense.
Can't put up enough points. Yep. I agree.
And so the game I mentioned earlier, Cardinals at the Cowboys. 10-5 Cardinals at the 11-4 Cowboys.
What time is that game?
That's 4:25 game. It's a big game.
Yep.
Big game. Obviously, both teams need it for different reasons.
Correct.
The Cardinals need it to try to keep pace with the Rams now. And the Cardinals have dropped to what? They were the number 1 seed for the majority for a good part of the season. Now they've dropped to the 5th seed in the playoff picture in the NFC.
Yeah.
So and with the Rams going to Baltimore, they have an opportunity with a win to maybe get back on that top line in the NFC West.
Where's that game at? Arizona?
It's in Dallas.
Oh,
it's in Dallas.
I see Dallas. Obviously, I see Dallas winning.
Yeah, I do too. And this is the game for the Cowboys where they need to show everybody and themselves that they're for real.
Yeah.
Put the entire game together, all 3 facets of the game against a good football team.
Yep. Agreed.
Then the Sunday night game, Vikings at the Packers. Vikings still have a small chance, but
that's over. That's a rivalry game, and what is it? Not only does the bad man Aaron own Chicago, he owns Minnesota too. So it's over. It's over.
Yeah, I'd have to take the Packers on that as well.
Sorry, Joe. We know you love Minnesota.
And then Monday night, Browns at Steelers.
Oh, that's a horrible
Justin
game.
says fire Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, it's time for Mike to go. Listen, put it this way: if the Cleveland Browns run the football and keep the ball out of the hands of their quarterback, they can beat Pittsburgh. If they don't, if they let him throw the ball like he did last weekend and he threw 4 INTs, you're going to send Ben out on a winning note. Because I think it's his last year.
But think about this. He throws 4 interceptions, and they still only lose to the Packers in Green Bay by 2.
Yeah, because of his running game.
Yeah, all he has to do is get rid of maybe one of those turnovers, and it flips the game. You know what I mean?
Manage the game, man. It's not, you're limited. You have to know your limitations, and you also have to know what the defense is giving you. And he was trying to do too much. So yeah, I think he's hurting himself, especially if he's trying to get that franchise quarterback money. It ain't looking good.
They need to just hand it to Nick Chubb.
They got 2 running backs they can hand the ball to. Yeah,
but Hunt hasn't been in.
No, but I'm saying you still have the backup who you can run the ball. You give one guy a break, and if you're a running back in the NFL, you can run the ball. It's not like the question is, are you a all day Adrian Peterson, or are you, or you're a guy that needs to split carries with another teammate? But the bottom line is, take the ball out of the hands of your quarterback who's throwing interception after interception. Let your offensive line do what you're paying them to do, which is run the ball. The holes were wide open. Absolutely wide open. They had over 200 yards rushing last week. Come on. And you lost the game by 2 points. They had no business losing that game. They had no business losing that game. None. Nope. So, unfortunately, it's Monday night, so we have to watch it. Unfortunately, I gotta watch it because it's the only Monday night game on.
Yeah, I think this is the final hurrah for Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that final hurrah should have been a couple years ago. He stayed a couple years too long.
Well, yeah.
So that winds down the NFL this week.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do our year in review. We got let's wrap it up. Let's start with baseball. The reason you're here.
Yeah, right? What got me here, right?
The Atlanta Braves they were horrible up into, what do you call it? The Summer Classic? What do you call it there? What do you call that?
Yeah, they were average up through the All-Star game, had some injuries.
Yep. And they pulled it out.
Lost their best player in Acuna. But they got into a situation where they got hot. We talked about it before the playoffs started. It's about how you're playing at that point. Yep. And the bottom line for them is their pitching. They had the best pitching, and they showed it. And even when what's his name went down in the first game of the World Series, and they had to throw those 2 pen games. They still were able to hold down some really good offenses in the Dodgers in the NLCS, and then in the Astros in the World Series. So, big win for them.
Yep.
And unexpected.
Yep. So let's start the next thing. So that was the second world champion or at least one of the world champions in 2020. But let's go back up to January. We had Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl at 42 or 43 years old, however old he is. And they weren't even a division winner. They were a playoff. They were a wild card winner, and they went on the road and won all their games. And you're right, they got hot at the right time, and that's Tom Brady. So let's see if he can do that again. But that was a great win, and he's the GOAT because he proved it. So it was a good start of the year of 2020 during the pandemic, right?
Impactful start. Proved a lot of things to himself and to all of us, leaving Belichick and the Patriots and going straight over to Tampa Bay, struggling through the first half of the season like they did. You know what I mean? They didn't look great in the first half of the season, but then they caught fire, and you know, and it was a team effort because, you know, he didn't play great in the Super Bowl. That defense did, though.
Yeah.
You know, shutting down Kansas City and limiting them to one touchdown. Did they even score a touchdown? I'm kind of thinking back. I don't think they even scored a touchdown.
They did
in the game.
No.
So, you know, that was all
about.
Yeah, that was all about team.
Well, you know what the cliche or metaphor is: defense wins championships. Offense gets you to the championship, but the defense is what will allow you to win a championship. Because if you've got no defense, you got no shot of winning, and that's true in every sport, right?
Yeah.
You play good defense. You take the opposing team out of their game, you win. So, and right after that, Tiger Woods had his car accident. And look at him now. He's
big story in 2021.
Big story. And they were talking about possibility of amputating his leg. His arm had issues. I mean, no one knew what was going to happen to him. But look at him now. He's and his son, Charlie, man, if you're talking about someone who mimics their dad, that is amazing. That kid plays, walks, his facial expressions, even though he looks more like his mom than he does his dad, because I see them both in him, in Charlie. But that Tigers cub, man, he is going to be incredible if things go well, because that kid can play.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. And so speaking of Tiger Woods and golf, we had two other things happen in golf last year that were really big. Hideki Matsuyama winning the Masters, first Asian player to win a major, and then Phil Mickelson turns around
and
a few weeks later and wins the PGA.
Right at his age. Yep.
So big news in golf this year.
Absolutely. The Olympics, that was big. The women carried the men in the Olympics from all the women's sports. They just racked up those gold medals, silver and bronze medals. The women had an outstanding Olympics, and then that carried over into all the other sports. Women, this was the year of women breaking that ceiling, that glass ceiling. We talked about it last week with the defensive coordinator substitute, right, for
Washington.
From Washington, the female defensive coordinator. There are a bunch of women coaching in the NFL. There are women refereeing. There are women on the bench in basketball, becoming athletic directors. So sports is doing a better job. It's not perfect, but this was like a jumpstart year. So I look forward to seeing all of the progression and the advancement in 2020. It's going to be a good year because there's so many opportunities that are available, and you can't get away with no organization. Too many eyes are watching for the door to be shut. So I'm looking forward to it.
And another big story on the other side of that came out of the Olympics, and not just the Olympics, but in tennis as well, was the mental health issue.
Absolutely.
Simone Biles having to shut it down and not being able to compete, which was huge news as it relates to the Olympics. during
Mhm.
those couple weeks, and Naomi Osaka
Mhm.
stepping out and speaking out and not playing and everything that came about that, and then Michael Phelps stepping up and speaking out and talking about
Because he started it.
his experiences
Mhm.
with it
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
supporting them.
Mhm.
So there were all kinds of stories that came out of the Olympics this
Mhm.
year.
Yep. And I'll just name a few of the women that had great Olympics. April Ross, um, Dawn Staley, who coached the women basketball team to a gold medal. Her players, Brittany Griner, Deanna Taurasi, Sue Bird, Katie Ledecky in swimming, if I'm not mistaken, in swimming. So we talked about Simone Biles, but we I want to bring up Simone Manuel, who was the first African American swimmer, right, on the
Mhm.
Olympics, or at least one of the first to win a medal. So it was a great year. It was a great summer Olympics for women. They did an outstanding job. Outstanding. A lot of little girls are now dreaming about participating or excelling in a lot of different sports. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So the next topic for me is HBCUs. Because of Dion, definitely because of Dion. And uh, George, what was his name? Eddie George. He coaches at Tennessee State. They played each other. So they're bringing attention to the HBCU football experience. And those who aren't paying attention to not just football, but basketball, because remember, there was a number one recruit in basketball, or a top five, if I'm not mistaken, top 10 recruit in basketball committed to Howard, right? So HBCU in sports, it's now shifting. There's a shift. And if mainstream schools don't wake up, they're going to be, in other words, the shift has happened. It's not going to stop. The question is, are you prepared for that shift as an athletic department? How are you going to be able to shift to, if you're used to getting recruiting, 5 to 15 African American kids on to your program, and now you're losing them to HBCU schools? How are you going to adapt, right? If they're not thinking about it, they're going to be left behind, because the shift has already started. As we speak, somebody is making a phone call to a parent saying, "We just hired Hugh. Is it Hugh Green or Hugh? What's the coach's name?
Jackson
Hugh Jackson. His staff is making phone calls right now
at Grambling. Yeah.
for Grambling, saying, we want your kid to come to school here, because we got a head coach who coached in the NFL for many years, and he can help your kid, you know, get an education, but also maybe make some money in that name, image, and likeness, and then go on to get an opportunity to play pro." So this thing has already shifted. The question is, are other teams prepared for it? And if they're not, they're going to miss out. And if they need help on how to navigate that shift, give me a call. I can help you, because I'll be as candid and truthful about what schools need to do in order to even out the playing field for themselves, because they're going to be missing. I mean, just wait a couple more weeks, right? The word's going to get out. When is a lot of kids leave or can finish high school a little early and go to spring practice,
Oh yeah,
right?
that's now. So they end up, graduating in
Early.
December.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then, you know, showing up at school.
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, that's when the conversation is going to really elevate, and the conversation will spark again. So,
Well, the
it's going
thing
to
is,
happen.
there are enough student athletes to go around.
Absolutely.
So, obviously it's a big plus for the HBCUs. Hopefully they'll be able to build off of this.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I but it's those big schools are still going to be alluring to them. And
Oh,
it's going to be about that money, Phil. They're
well,
going to do whatever they need to do to try to make sure that doesn't happen again,
well,
so to speak.
let me explain exactly in detail what I mean, Adam. He's going to be at
Adam's going to
Lambeau on
freeze his
Sunday.
rear end off in Lambeau this weekend.
Yes, he is. Adam, you will, no doubt about it. No, let me paint a scenario for you. If you've got a kid being recruited to Michigan State, I'll take Michigan State or Penn State or one of the big schools, SEC schools, right? And you've got a senior who's going to be starting. Let's go to the depth chart. You got a senior who's starting. The backup is a sophomore or junior. Let's say a sophomore, and you're recruiting a freshman, incoming freshman, and that incoming freshman is going to say, do I want to sit and wait for that sophomore who will be a junior, which means I'm going to have to wait 2 years before I get an opportunity? Or do I get an opportunity to go play right now at Grambling, Jackson? You know, that's
Now,
that's what's going to have to happen, right?
Bo, do
So
you want to hear where you really may see it? Transfer portal.
oh, absolutely. So we didn't
Transfer portal.
I tried to stay away from that because that might confuse people. But now you got transfer portal and kids. So you got some kids, instead of transferring from Texas Tech to Michigan, right? Michigan State, the running back. He transferred from another school to Michigan State. Now another kid may say, well, since that kid went to Michigan State, I'm going to go to Jackson or I'm going to go to Grambling because they're now on TV, right? Because Disney's got those contracts wrapped up, right, for ESPN, right, and the classic games. So they're not going to miss out on much by going to an HBCU now, because the MEAC and the other conference where the HBCU schools sit are under contract now with Disney. So they're not going to miss out. So, hey, I'm just telling you, the shift has already begun.
We'll see where it goes.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. I mean, can you imagine 3 years from now, Jackson State in the playoffs?
I don't
like Cincinnati is. Like
I think
Cincinnati is.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to take what happened with Travis Hunter and think that it's going to be something that everybody's going to start doing. I just don't see that happening. So that's why I say we'll see what happens down the road, because you're talking big money, big. Yeah, we'll have to see. These kids still want to compete at the highest level.
Put it this way.
You know what I mean?
Put it this way. Do you forget that Appalachian State beat Michigan 5 years ago in an open?
I don't forget that at all.
North Dakota and South Dakota have beat Division I because they're Division I AA. They beat Division I schools. Villanova, we beat Temple over the years. We've played Rutgers. We just played Penn State. We didn't beat them, but we competed against them, right? So there is some schools out there that have bigger, better football programs than, say, Villanova, and those guys compete, and they've won games and they've upset Division I schools. It won't take 10 years. I'm telling you, within 5, because I'm just telling you, I can see it.
Okay.
So, what else we got? Oh, Bubba Wallace. I recorded that Bubba Wallace. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. I didn't watch it yet, but I recorded it. So let's talk about Bubba Wallace being the first African American winning a NASCAR race in 50 years. Was it 50 years? Yeah, something like that. 1963 was the last time someone, Wendell Scott, an African American, won, and I think he was biracial. Won a race car, a NASCAR event. So kudos to Bubba Wallace. But you watched it, right? So talk about it.
Yeah, no, I watched it. Very good piece. You know, learn some things that I didn't know, but you know, saw some things that I'm not very surprised about that Bubba had to go through up there in that Mooresville, North Carolina area, which is, you know, NASCAR Central. You know, being stopped by cops for no reason because he's driving a high-end vehicle, you know, having to go through that process of being asked, you know,
driving while black.
Is it your vehicle?
Let's call it what it is. Driving while black. DWB.
Yeah. Having to hold his tongue, you know, making the comment, you know, in the documentary, talking about how he thought about telling the cop that, yeah, this is my car and I can buy you and 6 of your brothers the same car if you wanted me to. You know what I mean? I forget what it was because it's been a few weeks since I've seen it now, but his cousin was shot and killed.
Really?
So yeah, by police officers. And I'd really have to go back and remember it, but it's something that really sticks with their family. And obviously impacted him moving forward in, you know, how he, you know, interacts with people, how he interacts with police officers, things like that. It even went into where this year's champion had been suspended a couple years ago for making comments during an iRacing series. So during 2020, when everything was shut down, NASCAR did a lot of iRacing stuff. And a lot of people may not know it, but iRacing is where, you know, you can get on a video game, you have the simulator in your house, you get in the car and you can, you know, put it up here. And there are a lot of people that, that, you know, really log in and they race in simulators. Wow. And NASCAR was televising this stuff.
Really?
While they were shut down. And Kyle Larson, who's this year's champion, which I also found interesting because Kyle Larson came up through the diversity program that NASCAR offered, just like Bubba Wallace did.
Really?
Because Kyle Larson is Asian. So he came up through the same way that Bubba Wallace did. And he was talking on the radio. He asked, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And then something happened, and Bubba Wallace and him, they were racing in the same iRace, and he said the N-word.
Oh, really?
And that got him, I forget, he was driving for Sabatos, and they fired him. And he was at a NASCAR. And, you know, Bubba said, you know, he had to kind of live with that because once it happened, somebody went on the radio and said, Kyle, your mic is hot. We can hear you.
Oh.
So everybody heard what he said.
He didn't. He
And
didn't
so
know. He didn't know it, huh?
he didn't know it, and he immediately calls Bubba, and Bubba said, I didn't answer the phone.
Wow.
Because he immediately called him, didn't
'Cause
answer the phone.
Because he knew he made a mistake.
Yeah, but ironically, he comes up through the same diversity program that NASCAR was offering that Bubba did. So you'd think that somebody that comes up through the same program, you know, it's something where they're trying to help, you know, expand and bring in more diversity as far as drivers and everything else that goes with it. That he'd be the last guy that you think would do that. So
well, he needs ongoing education.
yeah, and he obviously had to do that, and you know, Rick Hendrick hired him to drive for Hendrick Motorsports.
Yeah, because
And
he deserves a second chance. He didn't kill anybody, right? So he deserves a second chance. He made a mistake. I'm sure he lived. I didn't see it. I don't know about it, but I'm assuming he made his apologies. He did the things he needed to do to get back get back on the road, and I guess he did that.
Right. And I guess probably the biggest thing in there was his relationship with his dad. His dad's the one that started him racing, bought his cars, and then something happened during this time. Well, no, his mother and his father split. They were getting divorced, and it happened because his dad made the mistake and put his hands on his mother at one point. So he stopped talking to his dad. And so one of the biggest things that
well, don't give it all away. I want to watch it.
Oh, okay. Well,
don't give it all away.
So there is a riff there. And just watch the rest then.
Giving it all away. I love you.
Don't give me too much rope, Bo.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I want to watch it. No, but that's good. I'm definitely going to watch it. He deserves kudos because he had a great year, and that's a good thing. So let's wrap up the year of 2021. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I don't do resolutions.
Yeah.
I just drive on.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, anybody, any of our audience has any New Year's resolutions that they're willing to make a comment and share with us before we call it a night and get rid of 2021 and move into 2022. Crispy Bacon. Anybody got any comments that
I haven't seen any, no.
No? Do you have any?
I just probably stay a little more organized.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, listen, we appreciate all of the audience. We appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. Thank you. We appreciate it. Everybody was a little shy because Joe wasn't here, but that's okay. We'll tell her we held the fort down. And thanks, Chris, for all your help this year. And we look forward to seeing you early in 2022. Any words, Ferris?
Well, Justin says his New Year's resolution, and I spit revolution because that's what he put. His resolution is to be a better person.
There we go.
That's always a good resolution.
Good job. Good job, Justin. Good job.
And,
hey, Justin.
And Kelvin says, no, I'm with Adrian. Just keep it moving.
Keep it moving. Right. Hey, Justin, are you still down south or are you back up north? Yes or no? Let me know. Well, listen, it's been a great year. It's been great meeting everyone from the Coast to Coast Network. And I'm looking forward to 2022. Making some things happen. A lot of work. Let's get through this COVID situation because it's horrible. And we'll go from there. Any final words, Ferris? You good?
Yeah, man. I look forward to seeing everybody in 2022. Bo, thank you and Joe again for allowing me to be on this show with you guys. I really enjoy it. No doubt about it. And that's about it. Thanks for everybody coming on. Andy Nelson, thanks for joining us today. He was a first time watcher today.
Awesome.
So
Thanks, Andy.
hopefully Andy will come back in. Andy is his dad was a really, really good friend of mine.
Okay.
And Andy is big in youth sports and coaches football and is on youth boards and things like that. So he's very active, does a great job. And so Andy, thanks for coming on. Kelvin, thank you. And I look forward to, hope everybody has a happy new year. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week in 2022.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great New Year's Eve. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And if you do, make sure you do it to the 110%.
Absolutely. If you're going to do it, do it.
Yeah.
These up and rest in peace, John Madden. These up. Take us home.